Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it. Another one! He got another one! Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday, December 6th.
Welcome
Dustin,
to
Schutte
Indiana
with us.
Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
A little extra. Not enough.
Second guesses, fires, throws.
We keep going, baby.
We'll make sure you're good and welcome in this morning. I hope everybody's having a good start to their week on this Tuesday, December 6th. Getting close to Christmas, man.
Have you got your shopping done?
Yes. I think so. Via Amazon. Thank you very much. But I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I will be in Florida over Christmas, which I am not going to complain about that this year.
Ooh.
Not going to complain about that. Let's see. On the program today, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Chronic Hoosier will join us. And Steve Marik from inside Nebraska. We'll talk about the Cornhuskers as they come in to take on Indiana tomorrow night after a shocking win. I'm still a shocking win over freaking Creighton, man. This is no small win. It's a bigger win than Indiana has.
Yeah. I mean,
by far.
And we talked about it the other day. The way they kind of scrapped, they didn't do anything outstanding in the stat column, but the way they just kind of scrapped and played defense in that game, that's what it takes to beat some of those good teams, and they were able to do it. So this is, I think a lot of people probably chalk that up as a guaranteed win for Indiana. Doesn't look that way right now.
Well, the UNC win, the luster of that is fading quickly. Even though they had lost coming in, I was like, it's not a big deal. You know, it's still, it's a big deal now. They have lost, 4 straight? First, or they have to be the first team in history to be ranked number 1 and lose 4 straight games. You said something about fastest to go out.
Yes, they are from what I saw, they are the fastest preseason number 1 team to fall out of the top 25 entirely. It's week 5. The previous record was Michigan State in, I believe it's 2001 or 2002. And that was week 15. So by a long shot, they're the fastest team to fall, number 1 team to fall out of the top 25.
And that's why everybody wants to hear at the beginning of the season how good everybody is. They love to hear us talk about how good Indiana is and it's going to be. And it's not is, it's can be.
Yeah.
Can be. They can be good. Are they? I don't know. Rutgers would beg the difference. That's for certain. Rutgers did exactly what they said they were going to do to Indiana. So we'll see. We've talked, how does Indiana respond? Now, getting back Jalen Hood-Schifino will help a ton, but that's it matters for this Indiana team. They have to have all those pieces, or
yes,
they're hurt badly. This is a team that needs its important pieces. Yeah,
and that's something. I mean, again, it's good to have depth, but clearly they were out of sorts when Jalen Hood-Schifino wasn't in the lineup. And we multiple times yesterday, people chimed in and said it just didn't look like they were at least on the offensive side, they were giving maybe the effort that you've seen in the previous 7 games that they played. So that's disappointing. You got to be able to bring that's something you can control each and every game. I still don't know. I still think their defense was good enough to win. So I don't know that I want to say that they weren't trying or anything like that. But I think there was just a level of frustration. But now, yeah, like we talked about yesterday, now it's about how you can bounce back. How do you bounce back against a team that is going to come in hot and confident after beating the number 7 team in the country just a few days ago?
Forrest asks, is anyone surprised Dustin is in the portal? I'm certainly not. I mean, why would you be? He's a potential All-American. So no surprise whatsoever. Just like there's no surprise, there are a lot of people in the portal all around the country. I mean, every team, good teams, successful teams are losing guys. So surprised that a great player? No, absolutely not. We knew this was going to happen. My concern is what's going to be left.
Yes.
What's going to be left for Indiana after the transfer portal, because they're in this sort of lame duck year. I hate to use that phrase for Tom Allen. I don't know that. I don't want that for the program, but I'm just, from all appearances, this is a lame duck year. I mean, unless some massive change happens and talent comes from someplace, and the ability to coach and develop that talent, and then to be the ability to successfully coach during games changes, which I'm not expecting all those changes to happen. It's a lame duck season. I think a lot of guys see that and they want to go play someplace.
Right. Well, and we talked about this too. Tom Allen knew when he talked to Don Fisher before, it was either Michigan State or Purdue, whatever, he was talking about NIL. He knew those conversations were happening in season. He knew that he was going to see a lot of players enter the transfer portal because they can get better NIL opportunities. They can go to a more established program.
I think it's more about winning. I don't think it has much to do with NIL as it does about winning.
Yeah. Yes and no. So, but I think the first part then, I think your comment about winning could then lead to more NIL opportunities. If you're on a better team,
absolutely.
Like Dason McCullough, if he goes to,
Oklahoma.
I saw a projection. Did he commit? I don't know if he committed, but I saw a projection that Oklahoma was in strong favor to land him. So if he goes to Oklahoma and starts winning, he's going to have NIL opportunities. If he plays like he did at Indiana, he's going to have incredible NIL opportunities. And what did Tom Allen say? He had a couple guys make like 100,000.
You also have to realize going to Indiana now, he's going to be on a different roster than he was at Indiana. And I mean that by talent-wise. There's going to be a gigantic difference. So does Dasan McCullough stand out at Oklahoma the way he did at Indiana? Maybe, because he was a starter and he got so much experience,
right,
that maybe that was enough. But
well, I think Oklahoma they're not the typical Oklahoma. They were not the dominant kind of Oklahoma running roughshod over the Big 12 like they typically do. So I do think he'll be able to carve out a spot. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get a $5 million NIL deal or anything like that. Don't take that. But I think he can carve out a starting role. I think he can be a key contributor. And Brett Venables is a really good defensive mind. So if you put a good player in a good position, I think he can flourish down there if that is where he, in fact, it tends to go. Plus, I mean, just the opportunities in general, because Oklahoma football is substantially larger than Indiana football. So there's going to be opportunities there.
Yeah, think absolutely, but it's the winning. Yeah, without question. The Big Ten gets 2 into the national champion, the college football playoffs. How about the Big Ten? Slid Ohio State right up in there. It worked out just perfectly. Alabama had 2 losses. Tennessee had 2 losses. Boy, the SEC, as much as they would have loved to have seen it, not going to happen.
Denied. How were you shocked? I was legitimately shocked that Alabama was not in the top 4.
No, not with 2 losses.
I was shocked.
Not with 2 losses, with Ohio State having 1 loss to Michigan, who is potentially 1B. This Georgia-Michigan game, which we expect to see at the championship, of course, that's putting the cart before the horse. That's going to be something, man. Michigan, every time I think that they're not quite that elite team, they do what they did at Ohio State. And I was like, whoa, hello.
They kind of suck you in the first half of games, and you're like, this team is not that good. And then they just explode in the second half. I mean, they are a great second half team, and I understand Purdue's defense is not the best defensive team that they'll see, obviously, but they ran the ball all over Purdue in that second half. The first play of the game was like a 50-yard run by Donovan Edwards. They've got a lot of talent. They've got the best offensive line probably in the country. Their defense, they give up a lot of yards between the 20s, but in the red zone, they are a phenomenal defense. So it's going to be really fun. I was just shocked knowing what ratings would be for having Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Alabama in the top 4. I thought for sure they were going to try to find an excuse with TCU and USC losing over the weekend. I thought for sure they would find an excuse to knock out TCU and slip Alabama.
I was going to say.
I was glad they did not.
Had they done that, though, there may have been a riot from every team west of the Mississippi, and rightfully so. I mean, TCU made it through a pretty tough schedule, man. Yeah. I mean, playing in the Big 12 is not easy, and they had a last-second win earlier this season, and then that overtime loss in the conference championship to a team that had beaten 3 top 10 teams this year, by the way, Kansas State, don't forget. So it's not like they lost to someone. Yeah, I'm surprised too, but they made it in. Josh Hoover, the kid that decommitted for Indiana, is on TCU's roster. So congratulations to Josh. He could have come to Indiana or the college football playoffs.
Quite a difference, isn't it?
Yep, made the right decision.
But in all seriousness, how badly does Indiana now miss not having him when you've got Bazelak in the portal, Dexter Williams injured?
He would have been playing this year.
I think so too. He might have been he legitimately might have been the starter. I don't know that, but
potentially. It's hard to start in as a freshman quarterback, but you know what? Sometimes the good ones do. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network will join us next, along with Chronic Hoosier later, as well as Steve Marik from Inside Nebraska, as we'll get a preview on Indiana taking on the Cornhuskers tomorrow night, fresh off of their big-time upset win of Creighton, top 10 Creighton. We're back with more. We're brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality. I never said that at the beginning. And the WOW Club. Don't forget, make sure you go to mywownetwork.com. Sign up for the WOW Club. Great places like BB's Market, your local meat shop, caterer, baker, no matter where you live, you can visit bbs.com. Stop in there. Oh, my, I can't wait to go by there and get some more meats. Make sure you join Endeavor Hospitality's WOW Club. You can do that on the app. Start earning WOW rewards today. They are a proud sponsor of IU Athletics, along with Andy Moore Honda. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Yeah. I meant to talk about this. Yeah, how about IU men's soccer? Is there seriously, is there a more incredible stat today than Indiana men's soccer? This is their 22nd College Cup. Soccer has only been a varsity sport in Indiana for 50 years.
So basically half the time they're in
half the time they go to the fucking Final Four.
That's amazing.
Final Four.
That
doesn't include how many Elite Eights that they didn't make the Elite Eight on. And I guarantee you those other three other times to make it smack even.
Indiana's
probably
good at the real football.
There you go. Great segue. Thank you very much.
There you go. FUTBOL, football.
You know what? That would be a great segment head. Indiana football looks for championship number 6.
There you go. I like it.
Football.
Banner 6 too. Winning at football and getting banner 6. They're doing things our other programs aren't.
Dude, 6 national they should already have probably 8. They've lost 2 that they got screwed over by frickin' Marshall 2 years ago. I'm still pissed about that, even though Indiana beat them in this recently.
It's time to go live anyway, so I'm gonna hop out here and let you just keep going. There you go. Live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, coming to you from the golf club high atop the 18th fairway, the golf club at Eagle Point Studios on this foggy day. One of those rainy, kind of late fall, wintry days. Haven't really had one of those yet. You want to talk about Indiana football. Indiana football may be the best football program in the history of the NCAA. Actually, there's no maybe. That's a given. Indiana football is the best program in the history of the NCAA. And by that, I'm talking about soccer. The men's soccer team heading to their 22nd College Cup. That's the Final Four. Mike DeCourcy joining us as well. Mike, I was just talking about Indiana's football program being the best in the NCAA. This is going to shock Mike.
Well, I feel like I stepped into a conversation from a different era, but let's go.
Yes, without question, Indiana has the best football program in NCAA, and I had to make it a little more clear for him there. Going to their 22nd College Cup, Mike, in 50 years of a varsity sport. I mean, to me, that is the most incredible stat in the NCAA because it's live. It's happening now. It didn't happen in the 50s. St. Louis was a dominant program way back, but that's because they were just the first to do it, I think. No one else was hardly doing it, but Indiana has done it from the very beginning, which was amazing, out of a club program, and it continues today. Again, 22 Final Four appearances out of 50 years. That's nuts.
It's amazing. It's a tremendous achievement to be able to do that. And we've seen, and especially they've been continuing to do that. I mean, this is the second time in 3 years that they're going to play Pitt in the Final Four.
This is six out of their last 8 seasons to the Final Four.
And this is as soccer has grown as a sport in this country, in the NCAA, it has grown. Obviously, it's not quite the same as it was 15 years ago when there were more players going through NCAA soccer on their way to professional soccer. It's not quite this. A lot of these guys will play professionally, but it's not quite college soccer is not quite the driver toward high level professional soccer that it was when MLS was young. But it still is a very high level, and it still is a very important component of American soccer. And there are more colleges that are sponsoring it. There are more colleges that are participating and more colleges investing in it. I mean, Pitt's an example. I'm from there. Everybody knows. And, you can tell by my penguin here. And so when I was there, you didn't even know they had a soccer team. I covered the basketball team there for 4 years, and you didn't even know they had one. And now they've up their ante and they've been able to do this, but Indiana has been doing it now for half a century. It's spectacular.
Well, the thing that amazes me is that Jerry Yeagley started it as a club team, like I said, and they went from being a club team to having great success pretty quickly.
Yes.
And then for that success to carry on through 3 different coaches now. It's 3 different, because there was a coach in between Todd Yeagley and Jerry Yeagley, who also, I think, won a national championship. I'd have to go back and look. I think he may have won a title, which would make it incredible with 3 coaches with 3 titles. It's amazing nonetheless in this day of Marshall. I'm still
come
furious.
on, lay off poor Marshall.
I'm still furious. Hey, at least they beat him this time, so I'm still furious about that. But like Pitt, most of these teams, except for it's either West Coast or East Coast, still for soccer, it seems like, for the most part, where those Pac-12 schools out there, UCLA, Pepperdine, Stanford. All those.
Pepperdine's excited to be promoted to the Pac-12, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Not Pepperdine. I don't know why. I'm just thinking all those California schools. Hey, they may be there soon. Don't laugh.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the World Cup roster drop, I did a piece about 2 players from the roster who one had played at Stanford, Jordan Morris. He played at Stanford. Another played at Washington, and they met as freshmen on the field. And now they were teammates with the Seattle Sounders and U.S. men's national teammates at the World Cup. So, like you said, the Pacific School is very good at it, and the ACC is excellent at soccer, and has done very well over the years. And Pitt, I think Pitt being part of the ACC has helped them up their ante, and Syracuse as well. Same thing. I mean, they have an excellent soccer team as well this year, and. So I remember this is true. When I was covering high school sports at the Pittsburgh Press in the early 1980s, there was a young man named Sean Shappert, I think is how he pronounced his name. And he scored 1 million goals in high school soccer in Western Pennsylvania, which I don't think was great high school soccer. But he came to IU. That was like the big deal, because IU was the place to go to go play soccer. And that was in the 1980s, and still 2020s, what are we 40 years later, and it's still the place. It's astounding.
Oh, Robert, I'm going to call you out, man. I hate to do it, but I'm going to call you out. I am one of the converts. I will tell you that if you've never been to an elite, and by elite, I mean Indiana level up soccer game, you've got to learn just the slight rules of the game. It changes your entire perception. Let me tell you, because
I'm not sure that Robert is busting on. He needs to clarify this. Is he busting on soccer, or is he just making sure that we understand that's the name of the sport? Because we still have that debate, and it drives me crazy.
And you got the commercial now with Peyton Manning, and
it's great. It's great. David Beckham.
Yeah,
that's a great commercial.
The guy that played football over there and on the other side.
He played here too. Too.
That's true, man. Let's see. The college football playoff we were talking about earlier, the Big Ten gets 2 teams in, man. First time ever. And it worked out perfectly. There was no other argument to be had.
Oh, yes, there was.
Well,
Not really, not legitimate, but it was Nick Saban making it on national television. And here's the best part, right? Okay. They played Louisiana Monroe, Utah State, and Austin Peay. That was 3 of their 4 non-conference games. Okay. And then they lost their 2 most difficult games in conference, at Tennessee and at LSU. And yet somehow people were selling this. And there were big time media people on Twitter on Saturday night buying it, that they're one of the 4 best teams. Are you kidding me? Like what? Like they played the weakest schedule they could possibly play. They went to Texas, won by 1 point, should have lost. And then they lost their 2 most difficult games. And yet, because they're Alabama, we're supposed to believe they're one of the best teams. That's why the whole system is a joke, and will be until 2024, when you can qualify by winning your conference. And then it won't be a joke anymore, because you won't have, we think these are the best teams. Because as I said, there were big time media people saying that on Saturday night on Twitter. I'm not saying necessarily college football media people, but big time voices in the media saying, oh, yeah, they were one of the 4 best teams. Based on what? I mean, literally based on what? Other than that they are coached by Nick Saban and wear the Alabama uniforms, and maybe they got some NFL talent. But every time they were challenged, they either struggled or they lost. That's not how the world works. You either succeed or you fail in sports. And they failed their biggest tests, so why should they be given a pass?
And
because Nick Saban thinks it's Alabama, baby.
Well, one of the things that I'm glad you said this, Mike, because on Sunday morning, my brother and I were texting back and forth, and it's because of what you just talked about. There were people trying to make a case for Alabama to get in, and he just brought up the point. He said, if you did the blind resume, and basically if Alabama's colors were black and purple and they had a horned frog on their helmet, it would not even be a conversation. They would clearly be out. So I was actually surprised. I was in the minority. I was surprised that with the way that there was some, I guess I don't know the word, but Nick Saban was trying to lobby to get his team into the playoff with the type of ratings that I think Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan type of Final Four would bring in. I was a little surprised that TCU get in. I thought they deserved to be in, don't get me wrong, but I was surprised to see that Alabama didn't sneak in there because I've seen some ridiculous things in the past, and I was expecting more of it this time around.
Well, I think when Cincinnati finally did it last year, and I think that they got to a point where they couldn't continue the ruse. It was too hard to do it with Cincinnati being 12-0, 13-0, whatever it was. And I think at a certain point they're like, man, if we do it this time, people are really going to call us on it. And so I think it was the same thing with TCU. They just didn't have any big brand left to put in. And so they had to. And so I think that was, and I think that I think one of the reasons I'm so in favor of the expansion playoff, beyond just the idea that it should operate like a legitimate championship. There's no other sport on the planet. I've said this a lot. There's no other sport on the planet that does not tell you what you have to do to get into the championship. Yep. If you want to play in the Masters, there is a defined list of criteria on what you have to do. And then I think the Masters Tournament Committee retains the right to add some people, like, I don't know, if somebody's hurt or there's a big time name like Tiger wants to play and he doesn't meet all. Okay, fine. He can still get in. Then he has to earn it, whatever he does. But everybody else knew exactly what they had to do to get in. Be X on the money list, win a tournament, whatever it might be. Masters, Wimbledon, U.S. Open, NCAA basketball tournament, NFL playoffs. Everybody knows except in college football. So we'll get past that. That's, I think that's really important to be able to do that. And the other thing that I think that may be even more important is having that access to the automatic bid. When the Big Ten expanded this summer, there were automatically the doomsayers who said, okay, now we're going to have 2 conferences. Everybody's going to go to those 2 conferences. Well, why would you do that if you can get into this playoff by winning the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the ACC, whatever league it is? You win this league, you're in the tournament. I mean, if you're Pitt a year ago, you're in that championship if they had it, instead of playing in the Peach Bowl in a game that their own quarterback didn't play in. What we're seeing over the last 2 days is the final proof that the players don't care about the bowls, the coaches don't care about the bowls, the bowls care about the bowls, and ESPN cares about the bowls because people watch football games. Fine, but don't save that at the expense of a legitimate championship playoff that we're going to have in 2024.
I want to kind of ask something as a spin-off of this. This isn't necessarily a football question, but when you say the players don't necessarily care about the bowl games, I agree with you. One of the things that we've talked about in the past is we think the transfer portal maybe needs some stricter guidelines or maybe a time frame or whatever the case might be. One of the things that I don't necessarily agree with is I feel like the transfer portal maybe should be open later. It shouldn't be open on the Monday after the conference championship games. I feel like there needs to be some sort of timeline where players have a chance to kind of cool off, talk with coaches, parents, I feel like there's a lot of players making just rash decisions, whether it's based on playing time, whether it's based on an argument, whatever the case might be. And then certainly in certain circumstances, I understand that players want to move on, so be it. Are you okay with where the timeline is for the transfer portal, or do you think it should be like I would think sometime in mid-January when the dust is kind of settled? That to me is
no. You want a lot of guys when it's transfers.
I understand.
Might transfer schools. It's semester.
That's the problem.
True.
That's the problem,
Okay.
Jim. Is that you've got a 1 semester sport, and so guys and ladies too want to transfer at the semester break. And so if you want to have that cooling off period you're talking about, you could make it after, take the last, likely date for final exams, say this year, maybe December 16th, which I can't imagine there's anybody staging regular final exams after the 16th.
Sure.
And making it then Monday the 19th, I can live with that, because then everybody gets to finish their classes, their finals, and then decide what they want to do. But I mean, you look at a young man like Keaton Slovis yesterday from Pitt, who decides he wants a quarterback who wants to be in the transfer portal. Why does he go in yesterday? Well, because he's trying to find a new home. He knows that his year didn't go quite well enough at Pitt for them to be happy, and they'll probably either bring in a freshman or as it turns out, they're bringing a transfer. But they were going to bring in somebody else to either compete for the job or take it from him. And so he wants to find a new home. So he much like the schools that now fire coaches a month in because they think that it'll help them get a leg up on the replacement. It's the same for you don't want to be sitting around saying, well, I'll just think about this for a while. And then that school gets a quarterback and that school gets a quarterback. And then all of a sudden there's fewer opportunities for me, Keaton, to find my place. So that's why he's got to go the first possible opportunity.
The USC loss hurt college football from a TV perspective, man. That would have given them coast to coast, top to bottom, Los Angeles TV market, West Coast TV, which they lost all of that. So, but they certainly earned the loss. I mean, this is a team they went on the road and nearly beat back in early October, I think it was, and then they got hammered in this game. So it's hard to feel bad for them. They had an opportunity to, I've never been a believer in the theory that it's hard to beat this concept. It's hard to beat a good team 3 times in a year. No, it's hard to beat a good team once. It's no harder the third time than it was the first time. It doesn't work like that. If you're good enough to beat them once, you can beat them the second and a third time. But the fact that they're good means they could beat you. So they had a chance to play a team that they knew they were good enough to beat, and they couldn't find a performance or a formula that was good enough. So, and that's why it's fair. People are complaining because Ohio State got to sit out championship weekend and they get in. Well, I mean, it's a dumb formula that allows teams to be picked and doesn't automatically take the champions. So that's what you get. Let's see. Deion Sanders to Colorado, first HBCU, historically black college university coach to land a P5 job. He goes to Colorado, which is, I think he chose this place on purpose. He could have got a different job later, I think. But I think he purposely chose a program that is way underperforming so he can again go and show that he can do what he does. He's already named Shakur Sanders QB1, which a little bit unusual, but that's Deion doing things unusual. What do you think? I think he'll be fine because I think the players will come to Deion.
I am really stunned that he had to go that far afield to get a job with what he accomplished at Jackson State. I'm really surprised. I'm shocked.
Do you not think that he embraces this challenge because instead of walking into an easier situation, he can
I think if Auburn had offered him the job, he would have not taken it?
No, I'm not saying that.
Auburn should have hired him. I think Auburn will regret not hiring him. Deion's a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a lot. He is. But he showed that he wasn't a pretender with his work at Jacksonville State. I keep calling him Jacksonville State. Jackson State.
It's easy. I do too.
Jackson State. He showed he's not a pretender. That he's a legit coach, a legit recruiter. That players want to play for him. Auburn's laziness in hiring Freeze is just astounding to me. Does Dion a lot? Like I said, yeah, but Freeze has what he did, so there's like, it's not like they hired somebody with a pristine background and a perfect resume. No, I mean, they were cowardly to not hire Dion. I think it's a massive error on the part of Auburn to pass on him. He could have stood up to Saban's dominance of the state and brought players to Auburn. Colorado's a hard job.
Oh, how funny would that have been in the Aflac commercial?
Yes.
Instead of the Ducks and the Goats, they'd have players that they're going after.
Yes. Colorado's a hard job. They have not had success in football for a very long time, but it has been done there. And I think the force of his personality will bring players in there. And they're in a league now that's going to lose in a couple of years their most powerful program and another significant program. And so I think that he's going into Colorado at the right time to have a chance to be highly competitive. And I expect he will be successful there.
Are you guys fans of The Office, the TV show The Office? Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so the immediate thing I thought about when Auburn made the Hugh Freeze hire was Kevin walking in with the giant pot of chili and spilling it all over the floor.
Okay,
I could not have.
I want to hear this analogy.
I feel like they knew who their guy was going to be, and I cannot imagine this is not going to backfire. This is going to be it's going to be a disaster one way or the other. Look, I don't know that if Deion Sanders was the guy at Auburn, there's probably going to be some clashing of heads there. Now, whether that makes him not the right guy or makes him the right guy, I don't know. But that's what I'm getting to, is that they were just so lazy. And I remember thinking like, oh, Auburn, we're surprised that Auburn didn't screw this up. Like, it was just it was a bizarre situation. I thought Auburn, or even I thought Georgia Tech would have been a great fit to hire Deion Sanders, because I thought he knows the area. He could have recruited extremely well there. But we'll tell you one thing. There are two guys who did not want to see him in the SEC or in the ACC, and that was Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. So I'm interested to see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see him out at Colorado.
And then we've got to take a break, and then IU enters what could potentially be like a lame duck season for them. The transfer portal is going nuts. They're losing players. So we'll wait and see how all that figures out. But we got lots more to get to. Indiana takes on Nebraska tomorrow night after Nebraska's shocking upset of Creighton on the heels of Indiana's loss at Rutgers. And how about that damn comeback by Tom Brady again last night? I'm like, are you kidding me? But great fun. And the Manning brothers. That was fun. Well, lots more coming up here. Brought to you by Go Team, a member of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go there and sign up. Start earning Wow rewards today. A proud sponsor of IU Athletics as well as Indiana Sports Beat. Back with Mike DeCourcy after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Brady, gosh, he was down 16-3. And Tom Brady.
Oh.
I love it.
How many? First of all, Manning's not playing anymore, so there's very few people I could be talking about. They had Dana White on last night, and he's a big Brady fan. And they were told that's when they were down 16-3, and he's like, oh, that's nothing. And that's Peyton said, oh, this is nothing for Tom. He'll handle this just fine, and he did. I mean, just right down. They scored a touchdown with 4 seconds to go. I mean. It was.
I will confess to having gone to bed when they were down 17-3.
Well, I fell asleep
16-3
right before that last touchdown. I dozed off and then it woke me back up, and I'm like, what? I'm like, are you kidding me? They did. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I was visiting one of my best friends, and we went out, and the bar didn't have any TV, so I did not see the game.
You were not at a bar, sir.
I was at an establishment.
Yes, you were at some kind of public house.
Yes.
Haus, Haus. The Manning cast is must-see TV.
It is.
Peyton is just continuing to crack me up as just a funny guy with his quick wit. I think I laughed harder watching the Manning cast last night than I did watching Saturday Night Live this past weekend. I mean, he throws those zingers out, man. And the best thing is when they have another player on there and they kind of start trading back and forth. But they were showing clips of, and then it's also fun when they show pictures and clips of each other. They had a picture of Dana White. He's all ripped and, no shirt on. And then Peyton's like, now, what do you think here? We got to, he puts up a picture of Eli on a beach holding this little bitty sand bucket with, a little bit of love handles, looking like us. And it's just, he was like, he says, that's a professional athlete. Are you kidding me? I mean, they just rail each other.
We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's December 6th. We're getting closer to Christmas. It's the Christmas month. I'd say Merry Christmas, but hopefully I'll see you before then. Mike DeCourcy with us from the Sporting News and BTN. Before we get to some basketball, last night on the NFL, the Manning cast, my favorite show of the week right now. Tom Brady, daggone, down 16-3, another stinking fourth quarter comeback. They win it. They score a touchdown with like 4 seconds to go to win that game by 1 over the Saints. A tough win. But just watch. That is must-see TV, people. If you're not watching that, I laughed harder watching that than I did watching Saturday Night Live. There was one clip of Eli they were showing, and just right on Peyton says, "Are you wearing white tights or are those your legs?" And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it was just that fast, and it's just funny stuff, but good stuff. Indiana basketball, Mike, takes on Nebraska, a game that 2 weeks ago looked like a nice little tune-up before they take on and travel to Las Vegas to take on Arizona. But Nebraska beat Creighton, a legitimate top 10 team. That could still be the biggest shocker that lasts all damn season to me. I would never have ever given Nebraska a chance to beat any top 10 team.
It's the most amazing result of the year, because they didn't just beat them. I mean, it's not like, okay, they hung around and they dominated the game. They won by 10 points at Creighton. I mean, and okay, so you check the box score. Were there guys missing? Nope. Kaluma, Cockbrenner, Shireman, Nemhard, Alexander, all their guys. They had everybody, and they clocked them. I mean, it was an amazing result. And it's not even like we're close enough to Maui to say, okay, well, they came back from Maui and had the nope, not that. They just clobbered them. I mean, I am astounded. But this Nebraska team, I mean, they beat 2 other high major teams. Now, not good ones, Boston College and Florida State, but that's 2 other high major teams in a row that they defeated. So maybe they found something. Earlier in the year, I mean, they go out and they lose to St. John's and Oklahoma and Memphis, and none of those games are competitive. But now they're on a 3-game winning streak, all against high major opponents. Not good ones. Florida State's really struggling. Boston College hadn't been good for a long time. But Creighton's legit. We've seen that. Creighton played Arizona to the buzzer before losing in the Maui championship.
They played 4 straight undefeated ranked teams
back
in their period. That mean they're going to be battle tested.
Yes.
Maybe they were tired. I don't know, but
maybe they underestimated Nebraska. Thought it'd be an easy game. I talk all the time about this, that that players sometimes think, okay, bad team, home game, good crowd. Creighton sells out for Nebraska. There's going to be even a little bit more amp. They'll win the game for us. We just have to play okay. It could have been one of those games, but still, I mean, it says that you as IU now have to take this game super seriously. Even though it's in your gym, you can't now say, okay, we can half bake this effort and we'll be fine. You have to go out and play until they say they're not going to be competitive. You have to go out and play hard, play your best, or you could wind up in the same position that Creighton did.
And the thing that interests me about that game, Mike, and you look at the results through the first couple weeks of the season, I don't know that there is – we talked about the parity in college football this season. There's a lot of parity in college basketball again this year. I don't know that there's that one dominant team. I mean, you can look at some of the teams that are in the top 4 that haven't lost yet. I mean, Purdue, you can talk about Arizona, you can talk about Texas. There's some really good teams, I think, but I don't know that there's a lot of teams that can get you if you're not playing your best. And I know that's typically the case, but it feels like even more so this season. And maybe that's because North Carolina isn't quite as good. Maybe that's because Gonzaga and Duke are struggling a little bit. I don't know what the case is, but do you get that same sense that this is I feel like just like we saw Nebraska beat Creighton, Jim said, I would have never guessed in this season that would happen, but we've seen a lot of different results like this so far.
Yeah, I really like this Texas team. I think they're very dangerous. But when I look at the first 15, 16 teams, I think it's early, and I'm not ready to make any. But I can't remember there being less difference among those top 15 or 16 teams than this year. I'm not going to say that's never happened, but I just I look at the teams we ranked number 1, 2, 3, 4, and my rankings were pretty close to everybody else's. I did not have Carolina at number 1, but I had Kentucky at number 1, and they're struggling in some ways too. UCLA was up there, Gonzaga was up there. They're all good teams. They've all beaten good opponents, but they have not been unbeatable. I think we're going to find out that this year is a very balanced year. We'll see somebody rise to the top, whether it's Texas staying there or IU staying there, or whoever it might be, Purdue. There'll be some teams that rise to the top and stay there, but I don't think that anybody's going to be far out of reach of any other top team. And when I say top, I'm talking about 15, 20 in that range, the teams that would be seeded. Now, I will say that when we get to the Sweet 16, whoever the 4 or 5 winner is that plays the 1 seed, I think is going to be really dangerous to the 1 seed. In ways that weren't a year ago or several years ago.
Let's see, Mike, as then, of course, we won't talk to you, but after the Nebraska game, not knowing what happens with that, Indiana travels to Las Vegas to take on Arizona in a big-time national TV game. After the letdown at Rutgers, which was, that's all you can say is it was a letdown, man. They did not perform, and Rutgers just outdid everything to Indiana, out-hustled, out-worked, out everything. They've got to bounce back. That I talked earlier with Dustin, the luster from that North Carolina win is really fading, man. They with 4 straight losses. North Carolina dropped like a rock from number 1 out, fastest number 1 team has ever dropped out of the top 25, I believe. So at first it wasn't a big deal, but man, they continue to lose. So that win is not as impressive as it was. Indiana will get their first true test. They already got a true test at Rutgers and they failed it. They get another test at Arizona or against Arizona, and Arizona is a much, much better team than Rutgers.
Yeah, Arizona has terrific big guys. They're Omar Ballo is playing great. Tabellis is a terrific player. So those guys will really be a test for IU inside. It's going to be a real challenge. And then I believe a week after that, they have to play KU. So they've got a couple of really tough tests coming up in addition to Nebraska in the league. I think it's good for them. Look, they were bad at Rutgers, but it's a tough place to play. And Rutgers had a great game plan, and none of that's a surprise. And I was a little disappointed in some, because I thought Miller Kopp showed up and played really well, and that should have elevated the other players. Him adding some space to the floor should have elevated the players. But let's not forget, they did not have Jalen Hood-Schifino, and he's an essential component of what makes this team exceptional. They could be good without Jalen, but they're not playing at the highest level without him.
Nope.
Because they don't have enough. They don't have enough punch.
It's last year's team basically without him.
Yeah, and they were good. I mean, yeah, and they were good last year at times, but they couldn't sustain excellence, and so they need him out there. And so to not have him at Rutgers, let's not forget that was a big component of why they struggled as much as they did.
Absolutely. I totally agree, because not having him in there completely alters their offense. It goes back to exactly what it was last year, and you saw Rutgers do what a lot of teams did last year. Packed it in against Indiana, forced them to shoot outside because you didn't have Jalen Hood-Schifino, who with his ball handling off of Xavier, they both can create shots. They both can create a little more spacing and do things that just wasn't there. Xavier got frustrated. He got really frustrated with having to carry all that extra load. As a matter of fact, I think I said this on the show yesterday. I don't think I've ever seen a player more physically frustrated than he was when he took that timeout, when he got boxed in the corner of the backcourt there. And you could just see he was so mad. He called a timeout just to get out of it. I'm like going, man, they got him. They're into his head. They were into all their heads, and they did a great job. You just got to take your tip your hat to Rutgers and Steve Peichel.
Great coach, does a tremendous job. Just a super job. And so I think I'm not sure what Jalen's situation will be for Nebraska and then Arizona. Hopefully he recovers from the back problem. Backs can be tricky, so hopefully slept wrong or something, twisted wrong in practice or whatever, and he'll be back and ready to go, because they're going to have a tough time winning against the best teams without him as a high-level contributor.
Absolutely. I don't see them having a chance against a team like Arizona or Kansas without him, especially going into Kansas in that environment. Las Vegas should be should be a friendly environment, I'll call it.
I don't know if you've seen the Arizona fans travel. They're pretty good. They love their Wildcats, and it's not a far trip for them.
Oh, hell no. It's a drive for them. Everyone else has to fly from Indiana. So I don't know what that arena holds, the MGM Grand Garden, but
I think it's in the 15 range, something like that.
Wow.
I think. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what it is. It should be a great game, a great environment, but obviously have you been to that arena? To the MGM Grand? Yeah. I have not. I've been to the hotel, but I don't think they had the arena open then.
I have not either. It's my first time, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, cool.
What's up next for you, Mike?
Continued coverage of the World Cup until the championship game. So we've got
USA lost, man. That was a tough. John still. That's why John's out here today. He's in mourning.
Yeah, I've heard others really upset. I mean, I expected them to struggle in that game. Disappointing with the way they played, but they're still not at the level of a team like that. And what people don't understand about this team is they see that it's more talented than they're accustomed to, and they are. There's more talent on that field than the U.S. has ever been able to field, but the talent behind them is not great. I mean, England could put their second team out there and challenge anybody in the world on a given day. Their second team. I mean, they have a guy named Trent Alexander-Arnold who plays right back for Liverpool. He has won as a key player. He's won the Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, the Club World Cup. He's won every trophy that you can win as a club player, and he can't get on the field for England. Can't get on there. I mean, because they have so much talent. Jack Grealish sold for like $110 million to Manchester City last year. Gets in 25 minutes a game as a substitute. That's what they have behind their starters. So they can rest guys, they can sub guys, and the U.S. has to have their main guys on the field or they can't compete with the best. So they get to the fourth game of a tournament like that, and they just don't have their fastball anymore. And that's what happened. Their guys were tired. So what the U.S. needs is for the guys who are now in the U20 group, they need 5 or 6 of those guys to come up and be legit pros over the next 4 years. So if the U.S. goes from having this group, which is almost entirely back and intact for the next cycle, and then a group of young guys comes up to complement them, then they'll have a deep roster, one that can seriously talk about advancing deep into the World Cup. And it's, especially since it's going to be here, if that happens, the U.S. will be a real threat.
I was going to let you go, but one thing real quick, thanks to Ross brought up, I'm looking at Dayton, Purdue, and Texas A&M. Their women's programs have withdrawn from a tournament in Las Vegas. The departures are part of the continuing fallout from a similar event at a resort or event over Thanksgiving weekend, where safety concerns were raised by some, including Indiana University basketball coach Terry Morin. That's not good for Las Vegas. Not good for. They need to get their stuff together, man. That sure makes a point. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I read some of that yesterday about what happened out there, and disappointing that they would try to stage something that whoever the promoters were try to, we can't blame this on the entire city of Las Vegas.
Oh no. It was just completely
the tournament promoters who put that on.
But how do you not have medical personnel on 50 minutes for a head injury? You had to wait 50 minutes.
Terrible.
It's if that was my daughter, buddy, we're having a conversation.
Yeah. And so we don't see this at Maui or the Bahamas or the ESPN events. That doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen. And it wouldn't have happened at the doubleheader, the UCLA, I think they call it the Las Vegas Invitational, UCLA, Baylor, Illinois. That wouldn't have happened there. This can't continue to happen with women's sports. We're way beyond that now. Yeah. Women's sports. If you're gonna stage a tournament for women's sports, you go, okay, what do you guys do at the Las Vegas Invitational? Check. Make sure you cover every base that they covered, and then you can go ahead. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be putting it on.
And I think that they're making a great statement for women's basketball is exactly what they're doing. They're saying, hey, we're don't tread on us, baby.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they're doing the right thing. I more power to them. And I hope they find some way to play, don't miss out on the games that they're going to have to sacrifice by not playing in this tournament. I hope they find somewhere to
have one in Indy, baby.
Yeah. Hey,
there's nobody that does it better.
Absolutely.
Mike DeCourcy, I hope you have a great rest of your week, brother.
See you guys next week. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network with us, as always. Appreciate him. Brought to you by Barbara Pop Real Estate Services down in Louisville, Southern Indiana, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott counties, all down through there. If you're looking for a home down there, they are the people. Barbara Pop, Barbara at barbarapop.com. Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. They've served the community for 3 decades. They'll get you taken care of. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
K-Bro.
K-Bro's going to Vegas.
He is. The Gators football team got an invite to the Las Vegas Bowl.
Oh.
So that'll be probably that. Well, that will be later December.
And that will be a lot more fun, though, than.
It'll probably be a little bit. He'll probably have a little bit of a longer stay than you will, would be my guess.
Because they want it more, K-Bro. My opinion, they just want it more. I think.
Steve Peichel's got him figured out. Sometimes that just happens, though, with a coach.
It shouldn't. I don't care.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's.
You can't let. They've lost 8 out of their last 9 to Rutgers.
Oh man.
8. Yeah, I went back and looked. 8 out of their last 9 to Rutgers.
Ooh, I would not have guessed that.
It's their biggest. There's nothing close. Let's see.
What have they lost? 9 out of 11 or 10 out of 12 to Purdue. So those two are right there. But I guess the winning streak's got to be longer now for Rutgers if TJD's never beaten them.
You guys go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday, December 6th. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this misty, foggy day. Hope everyone's having a okay day. It's just one of those days we haven't had yet. This day, one of those days you can get a lot of stuff done because outside is just not nothing to do out there. K-Bro come along, ask why does Rutgers still own Indiana? They want it because they want it. He's getting to head to Florida as well to cover the Gators, as Dustin pointed out. They'll be playing in the Las Vegas Bowl. The WNBA has never turned a profit ever. Why would they? I would never. That doesn't surprise me. But that does go. Not that we need to have this conversation, but it popped up. When people complain about a lot of things, it does. Everybody wants everything to be the same, but that's not real life. There's a reason certain sports make money. Actually, two sports. In college, there are two sports that make money, and that is college basketball and college football. Men's, period. Now, there are certain schools, Connecticut, Louisville, used to be Tennessee, South Carolina. Maybe the women's basketball team is making money there because they're very successful. But for the most part, all these teams are subsidized by men's basketball and men's football. That's just the way it is, and that's just the truth of the story. Now, that does not mean I don't think that they deserve. I mean, that crap out in Las Vegas is just utterly ridiculous, and that's because you got some morons that were allowed to put tournaments on, and no due diligence was done because they just expected them to use common sense, which that did not happen. But
well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm not going to speak on the WNBA because I don't know enough. I've never seen the books. I couldn't tell you if they turn a profit or not. Have no idea. Don't care. Don't know. Don't care. I'm not going to get into it. But what I will say is Big Ten Network has done a phenomenal job of beginning to air more women's volleyball, women's basketball on their networks, and they've seen an increase in the viewership. So there is something to be said, and that doesn't mean that these sports are going to turn a profit because, as you mentioned, Jim, there's very few. And men's basketball does not always turn a profit at every school. I would put there's probably just a handful where you do get a profit in college basketball, Indiana likely being one of them. And football, it drives everything. It's the engine that drives the entire athletic department. So but I do think that with Big Ten Network putting more of women's volleyball, women's basketball, softball, they are starting to see a rise in viewership because they're airing these sports. So I think you're going to start to see, I don't know about ESPN, but I do know Big Ten Network is going to start to air more women's sports. And then you'll start to see when those games are on more frequently, more people start to watch, there's a higher interest. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not saying those are going to turn a profit or anything like that, but I think that the interest level is going to continue to rise the more they air that stuff. So I don't know about the WNBA stuff. I don't know, don't care. I'm not going to look into it. But that's just, I think Big Ten Network basically has done a really good job in elevating women's sports, televising it, getting more interest from around the Midwest. And I think they're seeing the results of that with their viewership numbers.
I pulled up the Indiana versus all Big Ten opponents. It's kind of cool. This is actually since 1949, 1950.
Wow.
For whatever reason they did that. Purdue has the all-time series lead. That's because they got this lead at the turn of the century.
Sure.
Since the 1949 season, it's tied 67-67.
Wow. I did not know that.
Well, neither did I. And against every other Big Ten team, Indiana has a lead in the series, but some of these are a little surprising. Okay. Wisconsin, who had beaten, and they have not won there in so long now. After beating them for like 31 straight games, it kind of turned the tables for a while. But the series since 49-50, Indiana 82-44.
Wow.
It's a little shocking. Michigan 80-48.
80-48?
Yeah.
Wow.
Over Michigan. Michigan State 68-57. Minnesota 74-51. Northwestern 93-29. Notre Dame, not in the conference, 45-18. Penn State 42-13. Where's one I missed? Iowa. A little closer than the rest, other than Purdue. 70-60.
Huh.
So just a 10-game split on that one, baby.
I wonder why they did the 49-50. That seems like an arbitrary time to start.
Well, for one thing, because I've gone back and looked too, but between the Indiana Purdue series, and that's when I found out that there was a year that started. Actually, when I did it, Indiana had the series lead. I think if you go back a few years before this, Indiana would have the series lead over Purdue from this particular time, but they still have it overall because of Purdue was successful like early in like 1900, 1910, 1920. It's when John Wooden was there.
Right. Well, I mean, it's been very, you go back to Gene Cady and Bob Knight. That was, if it wasn't 500, it was very close. When those two coaches were there, that series was basically deadlocked. So, I mean, it's been a very, in my lifetime, it's been a very competitive back and forth. Now I understand Purdue's dominated it recently, but there was a stretch there in the 2000s where Indiana had absolutely dominated the series as well. So it's going to be fun if both those teams turn out to be top 10 squads this year.
Who do you think Indiana's played the most since then?
Since when? 1949-50?
Yeah.
Illinois? It can't be Purdue, but the way you asked that question.
It's Ohio State by one game. Why,
wow.
I don't know. 135 times since then. Illinois, Purdue, 134, Iowa, 130, Michigan, 128, 126, yada, yada. But, yeah, they've got a winning record over everyone except for Purdue on this, which it's tied. Not Kentucky. They played Kentucky 49 times, and they were 19-30. Most of that coming, though, in the last several years of that series when Indiana just had fallen off.
That's all is 49. Wow. Okay.
Well, they haven't played for almost a decade, basically.
I know, but I still would have thought it would have been higher because.
Well, they only play once a year, so you got.
That's true.
That's half a century, man. That's 50 years.
That's a good point. Yep, that's fair. I did not think about that.
Kansas Butler number 13. Kansas State 14. They played them 28 times, 17-11. Let's see. Nebraska, they've only played 18 times, 12-6. Maryland, they played 17 times, or 9-8, and that one's going to get twisted. They're going to have a challenge. That's going to be very challenging this year. Missouri, they're actually 8-9 in 17 games. North Carolina, 10-6 record in 16 games with the Tar Heels.
What's Rutgers? This is what I've been waiting on now.
Louisville, they're 7-8 with Louisville, so they need to get them. Rutgers, 7-8.
Okay, so it's closer than I thought.
Well, they've lost 8 out of their last 9.
Well, that's why I thought it might be a little bit skewed. I didn't know.
Well, but yeah, so Indiana win the first, I guess they won 7 out of the first 6 games, and then it turned around.
They won 7 out of 6.
That's nuts. 14-0 against Ball State. How about that?
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I can believe that.
3-7 all time versus Duke. 3-6 all time versus Connecticut, 3-6 all time versus UCLA.
Wow. So against some of the other traditional powers, not so great.
Here's one that's mind-boggling. Indiana State, they played 8 times. They played Evansville 8 times. Evansville, they're 8-0. Indiana State, they're 4-4. You got it.
Damn.
Temple, they're 4-4. Syracuse, 1-6.
They can't figure out the zone.
They did the one time they needed to.
True. Yes. Very true. Yep.
But then again, that probably cost them a national championship in 2013.
Yep, it did. It absolutely did. That is still one of the most puzzling performances, I think, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you every time. I'll tell you why. Because Tom Crean changed the offense the day before the damn game. This happened. I was told, but this came from inside. Mm-hmm. He changed the offense. He was so erratic. It's crazy. But I think we got to take a break because we got Chronic Hoosier coming up next. We got lots more for you.
Back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Chronic, how's it going, brother?
What up?
Well, we were just talking about how good Indiana football is, and hopefully they're going to bring home another championship.
You know, it's this is a surprising season. It's a lot like the 12 team, our last title, where they didn't look so strong. You know, dropped a lot of games, not a lot, but enough over the course of the season that, you know, they just looked like they had some holes that wouldn't be enough. And then, man, when the weather gets cold, Yeagley's just know how to get those guys on the same page, and they figured a lot of stuff out. They stoutened up the defense, and here they are for the 22nd freaking time. It's unbelievable.
I've got a feeling. I just they should have won 2 titles in between 12 and now. The one they lost to Stanford, where I don't know who it was, it doesn't matter, bobbled the ball back in the way back and it got stolen and they scored the goal winning. That still aggravates me. The loss to Marshall 2 years ago, I'm still and will not let go of ever. That team was really, really good, and that was probably another one. I think that they may get it done this time, though. I really do.
Yeah, never count them out. That's the thing, is if it's tournament play, that's literally what this team is built to do. That's who they recruit. That's who they are. It's amazing what putting a bunch of winners together can do for a program. And it's, you know, it's not plug and play. These guys have to figure it out. They've got to find the chemistry. They have to be selfless, which is really tough when you play with some of the best in the country. But they do it every dang year. It seems like, man, they figure out a way to get on the same page, and test them at your own peril.
I got to figure out when I'm flying to freaking Vegas, man.
I wish. I'm getting man, my phone has been blowing up here the last 2-3 days. People trying to link up in Vegas, and I'm stuck here. We got a big thing at work that even if I had the availability at home, which I don't this weekend, there's no way I could get out of this one. So I'm gonna have to watch it from the couch and start packing for Lawrence here.
Well, are you going to Lawrence?
I will be in Lawrence. We booked that December 14th, 2021. The day it was announced, I had a hotel, which has promptly been lost sometime since then.
Yeah, I booked an Airbnb as soon as that came out.
Nice.
We were going to be on campus at the Orand Hotel, whatever they call it. It's kind of like their Union, except nicer, a little more modern. And then sometime over the summer, they switched their reservation software and dropped my reservation. So fortunately, I had the forethought to look for my confirmation email just to button some stuff up, and noticed it wasn't there, and called up and they said, "Hey buddy, you're SOL, sorry." So we got a hotel on the other side of campus. We were originally right by the football field, but I didn't realize the basketball stadium's on the other end of campus. So we're going to be on the west end. Just hope they travel a whole lot better there than they did to Piscataway.
Well, nobody goes to Piscataway. You only go to Piscataway. You go to Piscataway, you don't come back. You go to Piscataway, you swim, you sleep with the fishes. Oh, we lost him?
I don't know what happened. He just popped out, so that must be on him.
How much time till we're back?
Well, yeah, we should be getting back. So when he gets back in, we'll go back live. We go live at 6:50. So here it is.
What was
here? He is. Okay, so I'll count you in.
Oh, I was looking up something and I forgot. What were we just talking about?
Jersey.
Yeah.
Oh, previously.
Rutgers, Kansas.
Hey, your camera's on, Chronic.
There we go.
Okay. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday, December 6th. That means we're 4 days from Indiana taking on Arizona and Las Vegas. But before that, Indiana has a game tomorrow night against a Nebraska team that has now become something to watch because they knocked off Creighton, Chronic, and they're a legit top 7 or top 10 team. Been talking with a lot of different people about them, but Indiana is got to get their stuff back together.
Yes, they absolutely do. And there's no place like Assembly Hall for a team to find its mojo again. But this is what we said last week, coming off the heels of, no pun intended, of the Carolina game, and all the hype and the excitement and just the energy. It's hard to call Rutgers a track game, seeing as they've pretty much owned us here for the last several years. But it very much had that feel, and lo and behold, the boys went out there and laid an egg. And they're going to have to get it back together here, because at the end of the day, for all the aspirations about Big Ten titles, as Mike Woodson has preached since he stepped foot on campus, you got to protect home court, and you got to figure out a way to steal some on the road. And to drop your opener on the road, so be it. You absolutely cannot follow that up with the home loss, though. You just can't under any circumstances. And that's not even looking ahead to this weekend to Vegas and the Arizona Wildcats. But this is one where they got to get back on the same page. Probably go a long way if you can get Hood Schifino back out on the floor and put the pieces back in place so that they can figure it out. But at the end of the day, no matter who's available, it's next man up, man. They got to figure out a way to get the offense in motion, because quite frankly, it was pretty disjointed there in Rutgers.
This is the fun thing everybody wants to do, hit the panic button after the first loss. But the way I see this is, you're not going to go undefeated, especially in the Big Ten. That's never really in play. I understand that there's some concerns about how maybe they looked. Obviously, not having Jalen Hood-Schifino was a big factor. But to me, I'm more interested to see how this team responds on Wednesday against a Nebraska team that's going to come into Assembly Hall pretty confident after beating Creighton. I mean, I think that this is you want to see how does this team respond to adversity. And this was the first time playing North Carolina, playing Rutgers. This was the first time really this season they had to play two quality opponents in back-to-back games. So I'm really more interested to see how this team responds. Are they going to come out? They're going to play pissed off. I think they know that they let one slip away in Piscataway. They could have won that game even without Jalen Hood-Schifino. Helps if he's back on the floor, but I'm really interested to see what this team's response is going to be this week.
Yeah, and this has been the bugaboo for years now, is when things get tough inside, Indiana can quickly revert to a jump shooting team, a three-point shooting team. And as we've seen, that's just not who they are. That's not how they're built. I said it against Carolina, and I thought they did a good job against UNC. When the shot's not falling, you got to find a way to attack the rim. And if the post entry passes aren't there, because our offense is pretty easy at this point to defend, I think, at least conceptually, we're going to try to feed the post first. We're going to try to get Trace involved early in the set. When that doesn't work, you've got to find new ways to get creative without getting lazy and just chucking up threes. There's a reason that Race Thompson continues to be left unguarded outside. Don't take the bait, man. You absolutely cannot take the bait. It's just the easy way out. You've got to find a way to attack the rim off the dribble with cutters, so be it. But keep attacking the rim. That's when Indiana is playing its best ball, I feel like, is when they're in the attack mode. And, if you continue to poke holes in the defense that way, you're going to find they have to make a choice. They cannot keep doubling Trace. So my guess is they're going to grind some film, and hopefully they've still got some salt in their mouth when the Huskers take the floor here on Wednesday night, which is going to be, for Assembly Hall, after all the juice and all the magic we had that last outing against UNC. 8:30 tip off on a Wednesday night, probably going to be rainy, probably going to be dreary. It's dead week. It's one of those where, I'm not going to go the route and put it all on the fans, but let's be real. They do make a difference. So curious to see just what kind of juice Assembly Hall can bring to the team and how they can parlay that hopefully into a W and get everything back on track.
Race Thompson has kind of, I don't want to say disappeared, but has not been a great producer so far here lately. And it's especially when they need him. That last game, they could have really used him, and he offered it. And of course, the whole team looked disjointed and out of sequence. But he just looked like he was not a part of the offense. He trying to shoot threes and not doing much work inside at all. Indiana had only, I think, 14 points in the paint, 0 from him. So he's a big boy. He's got to use that size to his advantage, because I don't care what anybody says. He's not a freaking shooter. He shoots 12.5% from 3. That no one's going to respect that. So don't try it. But you've got to help Trace out. They all they did was pack it in and did what people did last year to Indiana before they had Jalen Hood Schifino, which has opened the floor a lot with him alongside Xavier. But man, just kind of disappointed in Race Thompson here of late.
Yeah, it has been a little frustrating. He has not been as impactful. He has not been as efficient on the offensive end as where he was last season. I think Race is probably best served when he's able to play the weak side of the lane to find those gaps, those pockets in the defense when Trace is catching the heat and he's picking up the doubles. Our big guys are all across the board too good of passers not to find an open man, not to find a cutter when the spacing's right and when the movement is there. And, one thing that we've seen when they revert to being that jump shooting team, the off the ball movement really tends to go hand in hand with that. And they absolutely have to avoid it. All that said, I felt for a while now that perhaps Indiana's, at least out of the gate, they look stronger and more potent offensively when you have Renew on the floor with Trace. I think he just provides more offensive weapon or threat. But as freshmen are wont to do, he's really, really struggling right now to play with the intensity that he needs to without fouling. He's very much showing his freshman colors right now with his ticky-tack nature of picking up some cheap fouls and keeping himself off the floor. Sometimes availability is the best skill for a guy, and he's got to find a way to sharpen that up so that he can be there when Indiana needs him.
One of the things I thought might be an issue, Chronic, through the first couple games that we noticed, and it wasn't a big deal because obviously Indiana was dominating some of those lesser opponents, but you still saw that Trace Jackson-Davis just is so comfortable around the rim, but he's still not stepping out and hitting jump shots. And I know that that's maybe not his game, but I mean, do you think that that's a deficiency for this Indiana offense? Because if they can't pack it in, I mean, I think a lot of teams are going to say, look, based on the past, we're going to trust that if you have to shoot jump shots, as you mentioned, we're going to take that chance. So I feel like his inability to kind of stretch the floor even just a little bit can really hurt this team, especially in the Big Ten, where it's going to be a more physical league, especially around the basket.
Oh, no doubt. And, when you've got, depending on the roster combinations, lineup, when you've got two guys that are legitimate scoring threats, it makes you very easy to defend. And I know Race and Trace would love the ability to do that. Race has been a little more willing to step outside, but there's a reason why he keeps getting left open. And I think Trace knows where his bread's buttered, and so be it. We've said for years that's the one thing that's probably going to keep him from big minutes or big contracts in the NBA is the inability to knock one down. And while he has continued to develop his post skills, that just seems to be an element of the game that's just not there. As much as people, see what's missing, as much as you wish it would be there, it's just not. And I guess credit to the guy for knowing what he's good at and what he struggles with. But at the end of the day, the offense does struggle when you don't have multiple shooters on the floor that can keep defenses honest with their spacing.
Chronic Indiana now with 7-1 mark, and looking forward to them taking on the Cornhuskers on Wednesday night, a game that is going to be a lot more impactful than we had previously thought. Appreciate you. Look forward to it. And then, of course, this weekend they take on Arizona. So we'll have lots to talk about next week.
Can't wait. We'll catch you guys then.
All right, brother. You have a good one. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Cabello Restaurant on the Square in Bloomington. Get the taste and traditions of Southern Italy right here in Southern Indiana. We're back with more right after this. Steve Marik from inside Nebraska is going to join us as we'll get an inside look at the Cornhuskers as they take on Indiana tomorrow night right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I did that a little quick. I saw Steve waiting, and I'm like, oh, shit, what time is it, man? I was like, hey, Steve, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good.
You know Dustin?
Yeah. I've conversed with Dustin on the Twitter, so I'm
on the Twitter. I love
we know each other well. Yes,
on the Twitter.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to stick around for this conversation. So maybe next time, Steve.
All right, I'll take a range.
I've got to be out, unfortunately. Yeah,
I thought you left at 10:10.
Oh well, I can stick, but I didn't know if this segment was going to run over.
What do we have another break we have to hit, or are we done? RC,
you're muted, RC.
Thank you. We're about to hit the last segment, so no, you don't have any more breaks.
Do you want me to just drop out at 10:10 or drop out now?
No, stay, and then you can say, all right, I got to take off, boys.
All right.
And we'll say bye to you and kick you out.
Sounds good.
Cool.
How's things going at Rivals Nebraska?
Yeah, it's going awesome. Business is booming over here. We're enjoying all the workload that we've been taking on. There's a lot of stuff going on over here right now, especially on the football side, obviously.
Yeah, at least it sure does drive the train, man.
Yeah, that is true.
We don't have that luxury here.
Yeah. What is the overall thought on Tom Allen?
To me, I mean, I love him. He's a great guy, but I think next year is just a lame duck year.
Yeah.
Unless something just absolutely nuts happens, which I don't see how that's going to be a possibility when you're losing guys like McCullough and you don't have a freaking quarterback.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see Bazelak leave, but
I wasn't. I mean,
I'm gonna count you guys in a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. It's December 6th. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte from outsider.com as well. And we're joined by our friend Steve Marik from inside Nebraska. Nebraska's Rivals outlet. Steve, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And you already know, Dustin, man, how was beating Creighton the other night? How big of a win was that? And how far back do you have to go for Nebraska? If not, I don't know how big, but I know it's a gigantic win.
Yeah. That environment inside the CHI Health Center in Omaha was just, if you're a Husker fan, you couldn't have dreamt up a better scenario for that thing, because Creighton has owned Nebraska on the basketball court. It was the first win in Omaha for Nebraska, a regular season win since 1995.
Yeah,
so,
I saw that.
I mean, it just tells you how much of a run the Blue Jays have been on in this rivalry. But yeah, I mean, it was absolutely incredible to see from Nebraska, because absolutely no one knew that was going to happen. I mean, 63 to 53, 10-point win over the number 7 team in the country. No one thought that was going to happen. So for them to play lights out, to play the defense that they did, which was not really, I mean, they've been better defensively this year, Nebraska has, but what they did against Creighton was really, really impressive. And we haven't seen that at all this year.
Do you know what the spread was for Dustin? Or
I don't.
I don't either. No.
I'm just curious what the spread might have been. I'll have to go back and look. Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, the thing that impressed me when you go back and look at the stat line was the fact that Nebraska won this game basically on grit and defense, because they only made 3 3-pointers in the game. They only shot 7 free throws. I mean, if you would have told me that was the stat line and they shot 46 or 47% from the floor, I would have probably thought Creighton won the game by 20 points. So that just shows you how well Nebraska has played on the defensive end. I'm curious, have you seen what have you seen over the last couple games? It seems like they're improving already this season, because they had some big losses to Oklahoma, to St. John's. But it seems like they've maybe gotten into a little bit of a rhythm. Has there been some sort of change these past few games, that they've found something, or what's the reason behind some of this recent success?
Yeah, so I think one thing to kind of start off with is this is a team with some new faces, and anytime that you get a basketball team with guys who are playing during the season for the first time in games, it has a chance to go bad sometimes, and I think that's part of the reason why Nebraska was kind of getting off, and they had that awful second half at St. John's. They didn't look good against Oklahoma. They look bad against Memphis. And on top of all that, when your 6th-year leader, Derek Walker, a 6'9", 250-pound man who's really, really good, misses the first 5 games of the regular season with a weird kind of thing that was not publicized. Head coach Fred Hoiberg called it healthcare reasons. There was no reason why. I mean, nobody came out and said exactly why Derek Walker wasn't playing for the first 5 games of the season. So when he's not out there, the team is lost, and they struggle to score. But when he is out there, Nebraska's a different team, and they showed that. And Derek Walker definitely showed that at Creighton against Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the best big men in the country, 7'1". Derek Walker did not care about Ryan Kalkbrenner at all. He was going right at the hoop. He was going right at the rim. He was putting his shoulder right into Kalkbrenner's chest and seeing what he had. And Derek Walker won that matchup all night. And it was just really kind of fun to watch. Derek Walker had 22 points, 8 rebounds. And then you have Sam Griesel, the 6'7" point guard who is learning, I think, to play at this level. He's a transfer from North Dakota State, which is obviously a lower level, but still good basketball played over there. He's a local guy. He's from Lincoln, Nebraska. So transferring over here and playing for the hometown Huskers, who he grew up rooting for and watching, was really cool to see. He had a monster game as well. 18 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. He just plays at his own pace. He backs guys down. Usually it's a smaller player defending him. Because he's the main ball handler, and he just goes at his own pace. He's gonna show you your back and back down into the paint and kind of run the offense through that. And he's been pretty good at it. But yeah, the thing that won the game, in my opinion, with Nebraska is that defense. Though they were lights out with their rotations. A lot of guys are playing with their hair on the fire, And it was really fun to see the rotations and everybody busting their butt to find the open man. And when the ball was rotating, they were putting their head down, they were sprinting to the corner and doing everything. So will it look like this every game? I'm going to go ahead and say no, but we'll see. I think it was a really great confidence booster for this team that absolutely needed it for a really tough stretch coming up, especially starting with Indiana here.
Nebraska is 6. They've lost their last 6 to Indiana, but they had actually won 3 in a row at one point. Then the first one they lost was in overtime. The games have been close for the most part. 20, it wasn't that close, but there's one. So it's even when they were Indiana supposed to 71-78 the last time they played in Lincoln. So Indiana has to have Jalen Hood-Schifino, or we see what they're like without him. At Rutgers, they look a lot like a team from last year. Did Nebraska? Do you think Nebraska took anything from that Rutgers game on defending Indiana with how well they're playing? Nebraska is playing defensively right now.
Yeah, I would say just maybe playing. I think what Nebraska needs to focus on, and they showed this at Creighton, is just playing their game and not getting sped up and doing something that they're not really good at, which is running and gunning and shooting a ton of threes, because they're not a very good shooting team. But what they can do is with Derek Walker and Sam Griesel, they need to play at their pace, which is a little bit slow. They need to care about defense. They need to rotate like they did on defense. They need to find the shooters, contest those shots. Creighton missed 33s. They took 40 of them. They missed 30 of them. And a lot of them were just plain misses open, but also there was a good chunk where Nebraska had hands and faces. And that's exactly what Fred Hoiberg talks about all the time. But when you look at what Nebraska maybe needs to do and what they took from Rutgers, maybe just like, staying true to who you are, and on offense, not just whipping the ball around the court and just jacking a three, which they're not good at. What they can do is take the ball to the hoop, own the points in the paint, win the rebounding battle. They've out rebounded their opponent the past 5 games, I believe, and just limit the opponents to one shot each possession, and just play within yourself and take the ball to the rim and go from there and see what happens. If it's going to be a rock fight, I like Nebraska's chances in a rock fight. Honestly, that's just like what Nebraska does. It's the kind of roster that Fred has built in his season here.
I was going to make a similar point before I head out for the day, but this to me feels like if Indiana is hitting threes like they were in the first couple games of the season, I feel like this might be able to get out of hand.
Yeah.
However, what we saw at Rutgers, they did not shoot the 3 ball well. They didn't hit a lot of jump shots, and Rutgers, they took Trace Jackson Davis away. So I feel like if Nebraska can do that, if they can limit him inside, maybe get him in foul trouble or make his life miserable, he can't step out and hit a jump shot, especially if they don't have Jalen Hood-Schifino. Now we'll see what happens, but this, to me, I don't want to simplify this game down to this point, but I do think it might be quite this easy. Is if Indiana hits threes at about a 35 to 40% clip, I think Indiana might run away with it. If they are shooting the ball like they shot against Rutgers, there's potential for Nebraska to get another quality win under their belt here for the second time in 3 or 4 days.
What I'm kind of wondering about with that, Dustin, it's a really good point. With Trace Davis is who's going to guard him from. I'm just asking myself, who's going to guard him for Nebraska's roster? I kind of point to Juwan Gary. Juwan Gary's a transfer from Alabama. He's an older dude. He's like the tough jump guard dog that does a lot of the dirty stuff that isn't going to light up the scoreboard, but he's really tough. He had some man rebounds against Creighton. And he just did a really, really good job in doing the little things, keeping the ball moving, but really hunkering down on defense and taking away the Blue Jay scorers, whoever he was on. He's a switchable guy. He's 6'6", 215. I know Davis is a little bit bigger than him, but Gary's mindset is not going to worry about that. He's not going to care about that. So I'm just curious to see that matchup for sure, and maybe to see which other Huskers kind of take their turn on them.
On that note, I will see you guys tomorrow.
Looking forward to it. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Dustin, brother. We'll see you soon. Steve Moore, Nebraska, is someone mentioned there's a comment earlier that in regards to Fred Hoiberg. Great win the other night, but what's the situation like for him there at Nebraska? This is what, his sixth season?
Fifth, yeah. So in other news at Nebraska, the athletic director just hired a new head coach, big contract. They're working on finalizing his staff here for the Huskers. So obviously Fred Hoiberg is on the hot seat. I definitely believe so. He hasn't had the success that anybody wants here, but I'm just wondering how realistic it is to make another change in the same season after you just got done hiring a head coach. Now, all that stuff could be over my head. Like maybe they have enough resources and maybe Trev Alberts, the athletic director, wants to do this whole thing again. In his introductory press conference, when he introduced Matt Rule, Trev Alberts did not seem like he was itching to get another coach search under his belt. So I definitely understand like where Trev Alberts is coming from. And look, I mean, yeah, Fred Hoiberg has not had the success that anybody has wanted. And at points already this season, it has looked bad. I mean, St. John's second half, yikes. It was really, really bad. And then they had that tournament in Orlando where they lost 2 games and beat a really, really bad Florida State team as their only win. But I don't know, man. I just don't know how realistic it is to do another coach search after you just got done hiring the new head football coach at a football school. So I don't know. The Creighton win is a good one to build off of. It creates hope a little bit that maybe Fred Hoiberg has the team that is going to maybe turn this thing around and be a real basketball team instead of maybe just like focusing on last year, a one and done player. A lot of maybe some would say selfishness around the team. But this team is not selfish. This is a real basketball team with guys who care about playing defense and holding opponents to low scoring totals. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Fred Hoiberg is on the hot seat, but I don't know how realistic it is to make a change.
It's so funny, and I'm not the first person to do this. It's been very common that Nebraska and Indiana have been compared to each other, but in opposite with football and basketball. There, both have returning premier programs, in Indiana basketball returning, Nebraska football hopefully returning, and it's what they're working on because that's the engine that drives the train. But basketball is not the most important thing right there. They're, like you said, they've got to get the football program up and running, and it's kind of the situation at Indiana. They're in the process, but it's not there yet. They're on the way. They're probably ahead of Nebraska football, I guess, in getting back. But Indiana football now, you potentially have a lame duck coach for next year because it's also a move that cannot be made because of financial reasons for at least another season, and then we'll see if where they go from there. I'm not suggesting a change or saying there should be, but if that's going to happen, it won't be until then, which today sucks because of the transfer portal. It's going to be, boy, when this dust all settles, what kind of a team is Indiana going to have? That's the scary part.
Yeah. I mean, it's been crazy right around here. Like obviously with, the football change in leadership and Matt Rule hiring his new staff. And on top of that, covering Creighton, Nebraska basketball, plus the transfer portal, kids coming in, going out. It's been absolutely nuts right now, but it's what we signed up for to do. And it's been fun. But yeah, I'm excited to see Nebraska basketball at Indiana, which, we think on the surface it's going to be a loss for Nebraska, but we'll see what the momentum generated from that Creighton win can do for the Huskers.
Yep. Just look and hope it's good when Nebraska football is good, just like it's good when Indiana basketball is good. We talk about this all the time. We need the good programs to be good. But now with all the change, traditions are going away. UCLA and USC are joining the Big Ten. So we're speaking about traditions. That's out the window. Nebraska, Oklahoma, we think about that, or Texas, Oklahoma, which they can still play because they're going to be in the SEC, but they're going to be in the SEC. I think Texas and Oklahoma should have stayed in the Big 12. I think the Big 12 could have gotten to be a pretty solid conference because they're still good. They're still solid in basketball and solid in football. You've still got good programs. Normally when you take the two, I don't look at the Pac-12 as being a good conference right now, minus UCLA and USC.
Mm-hmm. Big
12 is still, pretty formidable. And had Texas and Oklahoma stayed, man, I think that they would have been, I'm not going to say they're going to be equal to the Big Ten on both, but I think they would have been better than the SEC when you combine basketball and football, personally.
The Big 12 is super competitive, and that's what I like about the Big 12. It's just like every single week you turn on a Big 12 game, and it's like a fun watch. Like it's like the TV deals, like with the Big 12, should be off the charts because they are the conference with the most entertaining brand of football, honestly, in my opinion. High flying offenses, and they've got some really good players in that conference. I don't know. I really enjoy watching Big 12 football, and I'm with you with the Pac-12 outside of Lincoln Riley and USC, along with UCLA. It's just what else is there really?
The Big Ten getting two teams into the college football playoff for the first time, and this is the second to last time that we'll have a college football playoff. A 4-team CFB, rather, is what I meant to say. So it would be pretty cool to see Michigan and Ohio State play in the championship game. That would be pretty nice after this SEC. I'm so sick of the SEC. I'll be honest with you.
People have Alabama fatigue, right?
Yeah. I've meant to go look. How long has it been since both Alabama and Clemson, either or, were not in the college football playoffs? I mean, we got to be talking 6-7 years.
That's got to be
8.
That's got to be a long streak.
A good while. So, but you still have Ohio State in, and they're one of those 3. But it should be fun. Looking forward to it. The Big Ten with the best chance to win a national championship in a long time. What do you think about Michigan? I was a little surprised they opened my eyes with their win at Ohio State because I saw them play here at Indiana, and it was not as dominant as it was in the shoe.
I like that. I really like Michigan's team. Build it from the line of scrimmage and out. That's what Jim Harbaugh has done. I think it's a really, really tough team to beat. Going into the Big Ten championship game, and they weren't going to have Blake Corum, and they didn't have Blake Corum for much of that Ohio State game. I wasn't sure, but Donovan Edwards, that freshman running back, he's really, really good. Like he's really, really good. He's not as good as Blake Corum is, obviously, but Donovan Edwards has a real future in football, and they found themselves a good one at running back. And I'm not saying the offense is as good as it would be with Blake Corum in there, because I think Blake Corum does some things that Donovan Edwards isn't capable of right now. But along with JJ McCarthy, more dynamic quarterback than Caden McNamara, I don't know. I think Michigan has a real chance. I think they'll get past TCU, but boy, I'm gonna go with Georgia over Ohio State, and I just can't wait for that Georgia Michigan championship if it does come to be.
Yeah, it would be great to see Ohio State knock off Georgia for an all Big Ten finish, but Georgia has looked as strong as anybody. I think it is 1A and 1B with Georgia and Michigan. I mean, Michigan, I did not think that they were above Ohio State, to be honest with you, until they went there and kicked the crap out of them.
I'm with you.
In the horseshoe. I was like, what is going on, man?
That was a butt kicking too. A butt kicking.
Well, and someone asked, it was Kevin Brockway, said, on Twitter, were we surprised that Jeff Brom went for so many field goals in that game? And I'm thinking, nah, he knew he couldn't score. Mm-hmm. He knew that the defense that he was up against, and they could not score. So he put as many points on the board as he could to make it look respectable. But that's as good as they could make it with kicking field goals. So he knew what he was doing. And Jeff Brom is probably not long for Louisville.
I was going to say, he might be. Yeah,
we got all kinds of stuff. How wild is it, though, to imagine the head coach of a Big Ten divisional champion that just played in the Big Ten championship taking a step down to go to Louisville with I get it, the reasons why. Played there, coached there, is from there, his family lives there, played high school there, everything. Jeff, the Broms are Louisville football. So I get it. But they can't pay him the money that Purdue can. There's no way, because in 2 years, that ability will go up for Purdue when they start getting $100 million a year instead of 50. Louisville's not getting not close to getting that kind of payout.
No.
I mean, and they have spent so much money in recent years having to pay buyouts for Petrino. And then you had to get rid of Mack, hiring, firing of Mack. They have just gone through so much. And the NCAA, I don't know where they're going to find the money, because if Purdue should be able to outbid them.
And really, like, when you look at the ACC, so we just got done talking about how the Pac-12, like, there's really nothing over there right now. USC and UCLA are leaving. So like, with those two out, and, with Jeff Brom potentially going to Louisville and the ACC, like, where's the ACC sitting in the hierarchy of everything? Like, they're not going to be in the Big Two of the SEC and the Big Ten. So, yeah, if Jeff Brom does truly go back to his alma mater and go coach the hometown team, that's just wild, because the ACC is not sitting good right now, right? They're along with the Pac-12 and kind of wondering about, like, what do their futures look like? Well,
the only good thing is with the 12-team playoff coming.
Oh, yeah.
Is all you need is to have – actually, it may become an easier spot to reach the playoffs, because you're playing in such a weak-ass league.
That's a good point.
The ACC has been weak for the last couple of years. It's been Clemson and back when Louisville was good, when you had Lamar and they were challenging Clemson.
Yeah.
That was it between those two. I mean, a few other teams were okay, but Miami's dropped off. Virginia Tech's dropped off. They just don't have, so it's an easier path to the college football playoffs.
It is. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that news did break with the 12-team playoff. And that's obviously a good thing. I think it's going to be a lot more fun for college football fans. But yeah, it's a great point. And yeah, you're right. Now, just kind of talking this out live on air now, it does kind of feel like Jeff Brom would be in a better situation where he doesn't have to always, compete with the Big Ten.
Taylor Algie says he doesn't think that money is as big a priority. It might not be, but we're talking a $2 million a year difference a year for 6 years. $12 million, you're not gonna. It's kind of hard to turn away from $12 million, but there's a big pull, and he's very frugal. He still drives the same old vehicle, I think. So yeah, money is not. He's not moving for money, and he would have probably a little more. I don't want to say job security. Not that he doesn't have job security now, but it would be hard for Louisville to turn their back on him if something were to go wrong. So, but then, I mean, is this the end? Where do you go from here? Is this a permanent lifetime deal for you, Jeff? Or do you still have goals of Notre Dame or something big? Because, I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just saying what you did about, him not changing much and driving the same old car, and money might not be a might be an option. It makes you wonder about like what his future goals are, right? I mean, if he's still driving the same car and you know, money's not an option, he's happy where he is. Maybe it's not, you know, one of the top tier programs in the country. I don't know. Maybe he is cool with just chilling at Louisville for the rest of his career. Steve,
are you coming in for the ball game?
No, I am covering it from a couch.
Boy, lucky you. Yeah, that's a haul, man. I've done that 9-hour drive for football.
Yeah, we travel to every football game, but we do not travel. I mean, Omaha might be the longest that we go for basketball, and then obviously we might go to the Big Ten tournament, depending on how things shake out. But yeah, regular season we'll go to Omaha, and that's about as far for basketball.
That's funny. All right, brother. Well, I cannot thank you tell you how much I appreciate you, Steve Marik from inside Nebraska. For any coverage, more coverage of the Big Ten, you can go there, coverage of the Cornhuskers. But appreciate you, brother. And anything you need, reach out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Jim.
You betcha. Steve Marik from inside Nebraska joining us here today. Big thanks to, of course, Dustin Schutte, as always, our co-host from Outsider.com. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network and Chronic Hoosier joined us as well today. Big thanks to RC on the RC. I got to think of a name. RC on the something.
RC the MC.
There you go. RC on the MC. Our backup producer 3 today is John is on another assignment. So John, the producer, back tomorrow, I think, as well. But thanks to all of you guys. Without you, there's no reason for us to be here. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow. Is game day, and we'll be back. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.